Doesn't matter the size of your facility. You're not too big or too small to be able to host sports tourism. It's great for the community, great for the youth, a great way to showcase your city and your area. So I think you're going to see more and more of these down the road, and it's going to be exciting to see where it all ends up.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for making time to join the Sports Facilities Companies for our latest Industry Leaders Roundtable. My name is Joe Fackel. I'm a development advisor here at SFC, and I'll be the host for today's discussion. If you're new to SFC, our mission is a pretty cool one. It's to improve the health and economic vitality of the communities we serve through sport, recreation, wellness, events, and entertainment facilities. And as an industry leader, we feel an obligation to share best practices, trends that we're seeing, and other insights in support of that mission. And today we're going to be discussing a really interesting topic. I think it's very timely. It's on the changing nature of mixed-use development and the emergence of sport and recreation anchors within those developments. I think it's particularly timely given the current state of retail, which historically would function as an anchor tenant in a lot of mixed-use developments. With the emergence of Amazon, we've had a great recession, we've had a global pandemic. The state of retail is in a little bit of transition. So sport and recreation facilities really have become front and center for a lot of cities around the country. And we've assembled a really impressive group of panelists to discuss this topic. I'm humbled to share the screen with these gentlemen. Let's make some quick introductions. Let's just go around the horn. Let's start with
Matocha. I'm president of Stonehenge Holdings. We're a real estate development corporation based out of Sugar Land, Texas.
My name's Dan Powell. I'm Vice President of Client Relations for Core Construction. We're a national construction management firm. We specialize and kind of play in that public sector market. We do some private sector construction as well.
My name is JD Wood. I'm the Director of Business Development for the Dallas Sports Commission. So in my current role, my job is to market and sell the city of Dallas as a sports destination, from anything from recreational travel soccer programs to Super Bowl. Doing a lot of work on the World Cup right now.
How do we get here? From your perspective, what's been the evolution that you've seen from your seat that has resulted in these sports and recreation facilities becoming such a wildly popular way to anchor development? Kevin, let's start with you again, then we'll go Dan and JD.
We ask ourselves that a lot. We've seen the evolution. We've been doing private-public partnerships before they were cool. For the last 25 years, we've been focusing on these type projects with municipalities through the form of a capital lease type program. And it's interesting. If you look back historically, we did a lot of downtown development work, and that was back then when every city wanted a new hotel and convention center. That was kind of the thing every city needed. We evolved from that into more of the outdoor sports tourism business. And it's wonderful. I think it coupled with the fact that people are looking and focusing more on health and well-being. And so when you tie the two together, it's a great way to showcase your city. And so we've seen the activity rise from different sports venues and teams and baseball and basketball and volleyball and all the tournaments that last. It used to be you could play baseball 4 months, 5 months of the year, and that was your season. It's 12 months of the year now for any sport that you want to play, and you can travel all over now to do this. And so we're seeing more and more families travel to different cities instead of taking that traditional vacation that they did in the past. And so it's just a wonderful way, again, to showcase your city and to bring people and to create that hub, which builds that synergy for development around it And we always talk about the direct and the indirect impact that these facilities have.
Yeah, Kevin, I tag along what Kevin said. I mean, yeah, I think you're seeing the increase in awareness for health and wellness for, not only adults, but for our youth as well. If you look across the nation and a lot of these pockets, these cities, that you just see this unbelievable population growth in that 18 and under age group. You put that with the increased visibility of sports in general. I think in our society with social media and highly televised sports, I think to Kevin's point, this has become such a family event. And so you mix that with, obviously municipalities hopefully seeing that there is, much like you see in the higher ed sector, where athletic departments are competing for students. I think municipalities are finally getting the real selling point is they're having to compete in a tourism standpoint, and they always have, but now sports, youth sports is being very much like you would compare to, again, a college athletic department trying to build the best facilities, the best campuses, and have that kind of experience that those athletes can get. Well, the municipalities need to think of it the same way and trying to make sure that they get those clubs, those teams, those families to their cities.
Yeah, agreed. And, to not sound like a broken record, I definitely think the idea of that playcation, vacation where everybody's coming to participate in the, kind of combining two into one is really been the trend of where everybody's going. And, looking at from a city perspective or municipality, a lot of times when they would build these facilities for parks and recreation in the community, which is very, very important. And that's the base that you always have to have for the user group. But it was a loss leader. Like, when I worked for municipality, we were at Parks and Rec, we could lose 80 cents on every dollar. So you're always losing money when it's a Parks and Rec specific facility. And that's okay if that's what the community desires and what their focus is. But you're having the opportunity to add the tourism components, the mixed use development around it, the component which adds sales tax revenue, which adds opportunity to make it a year round, and you can offset those losses with rentals from tourism based groups. And so that's why you're seeing that shift. You asked Joe, yes, how did we get here? You're seeing that people deciding that they can't lose money like that anymore. They got to start making it where it's a year round facility. You've got to at least try to break even, if not make money, to show its existence. And then that's when you bring in the triple Ps, because people operate on better than maybe municipalities are able to. And you see that's kind of evolved to all encompassing, where that's kind of the movement for everyone moving forward.
So Kevin, I'd be curious to hear from you and the other panelists. What are the other ingredients that make a really successful sport recreation anchored mixed use development?
Well, I think first of all, you have to have accessibility. So you need accessibility into your city, and then from there, for anyone who's lived and breathed and survived a basketball or baseball tournament, we've all been to some that are difficult at best, and then some that are just so wonderful to attend. And these tournaments are not only they're not Saturday from 2 to 4. I can assure you, they're Friday, beginning Friday morning, and kids are out of school and they go all the way through the week, and they're 7 a.m. starts and there's 10 p.m. starts, and you're there all day. And so what you're looking for is a gathering area that will develop into much more than just the facility or the arena or the fields, because then you just have a dead destination. No one wants that. What you're looking for is hotels around it, places that parents. Nothing's better than a hotel, right across the street or immediately adjacent to the facility, where then you can eat, you can go cool off, and go take a shower. You can visit. Sometimes you have an 8 a.m. start and you have a 3 p.m. as your next game, and you've got all this idle time. Not long ago, where a small center was developed with 6 or 8 basketball courts, but from that, adjacent to it, a Top Golf was developed adjacent to it, right? And then you have hoteliers that are coming in and saying, well, hang on, we'd like to be in this area as well. and then here come the restaurants, and it goes on and on and on. So that's what we're seeing. If you have the basis to long-term plan this, because this is one of those developments that it's not by itself. You want to plan this to where this is one of the initial building blocks of something that'll be much, much bigger.
A sports complex or a large field house coming into the community, that's exciting, right? That's the whole reason those people, those families are coming there. So the focus is definitely, rightfully so, needs to be in and around that facility, that sports facility, on where they're going to be playing. However, the planning needs to be much more broad, and you really make sure, I think we see so many mistakes made with municipalities, and that excitement and just worrying solely on that athletic facility, not realizing that what as Kevin was alluding to, and his point is all of those things around it. The site selection is huge. The partners that you bring in for that, just not only the planning side, but then the development side of these other entities, the hotels, the restaurants, the places like Top Golf, all of those are partners that can make, again, I use this a lot with municipalities. Again, I go back to saying, just make it, treat it like you're a college campus, and they do, unbelievable master plans. And it doesn't all happen in one day. It does take time, and it does take some phases. And the good campus master plans, as you see, and if municipalities treat this development as a master plan, they can truly get that best, the best site, the best layout, the best partners that go in and around that. Because ultimately, you don't want them, I said, you don't want these families to come in for one tournament and then have a bad experience and say, we're never doing that again. So
to kind of go along with what Dan's is saying, I think that's one of the biggest things we've seen in the evolution of not only leadership in communities, where they're admitting, hey, I don't know what I don't know, right? And so they're looking for assistance, looking for guidance. And then, so you see the facilities that were built for non-tourism purposes that are becoming tourism, and then ones that were planned out appropriately. Because I'll give you an example of a place I've worked at is they built the facility as a more recreational. Now they want it to be big tourism. They want it to do everything, but they built it on the border of two towns, and they're landlocked on their side. And so the community now, for the visitors, they see the hotels, they see the restaurants. It's great, but technically, even though it's just across the streets, it's a different municipality. So the sales tax goes over there, the tourism dollars goes over there. And so it definitely is, I think you're seeing a lot of people understanding and planning out appropriately now. And that's been one of the biggest evolutions. But it definitely is, cannot hit hard enough on the planning and coming to a vision of what your community and your facilities and the development wants to look like and be known for is very important.
Kevin, from a developer's perspective, not everybody's downtown Dallas. Cities have different things to offer. What are some of the ingredients that you feel like have to be in place in order to successfully develop one of these kinds of assets?
I don't know that it's so much determined by population. It just depends. You have to understand what your community can bring. I've seen this in very small towns where it is a baseball facility, maybe 6 or 8 fields that were done up nice. I think who takes the lead on that, if it's a county versus a city. I think if you have vision and you have the understanding that it does take, going to Dan's comment, it does take time. You need to master plan this correctly, and given the right ingredients there, it can work. And again, it's your benefit to your city or your area. Again, is not really dictated by, you don't need Dallas. You don't need 6 million people or 2 million people. You just need the right facility and understand how to, what it can bring to you. And we always, work with our partners to determine the direct and the indirect impact. And too many times we see communities that are short-sighted from the standpoint of they just looked at the direct impact, and they say, well, with debt service, this facility is just not going to make us any money directly. Therefore, why would we do it? And I think if you have that short-sightedness, you're not going to see the total economic development impacts to your city. And so you have to look at the overall indirect impacts, so important on these facilities. And so again, you have to have vision. And there's a lot of things that can play into this, but it's the facilities, it's the site, and it's the operator. And if you don't have the right operator, it doesn't matter what you build. It's the marketing side of this thing. When someone comes to visit your completed product, if it's not, if the stay was not successful for them and they didn't enjoy it, they're not coming back. You've got, the operator is so important in the design as well as in the operations.
The operation side of it, I think, is something that has emerged to be to prove that it's a formula that needs to be seriously considered. In my opinion, very necessary. When you think of some of these, I think Joseph asked about some of the different size of, some of these communities. Obviously, you got places like Dallas, obviously a little different than, maybe rural America, Midwest America. But we've seen facilities go up in places, and we've heard it. It's like, that's never going to work. See it in place. But with the right planning, I think they realize what they may not realize is that they had the correct advisement up front. Again, going back to that, all the selection of site and the design, the quality construction. But again, I think going back to my point about the operation and managing of that facility, let's think about this, some of these municipalities that we've seen, even especially in the last year, they're swamped. I mean, they're trying to hold on to every every revenue dollar that they can, and positions. People are somewhat doubled up on responsibilities, just trying to make sure that they stay within their annual budgets for overhead. So they don't have time or nor the expertise that it takes to manage and operate these facilities. And I think if you really sit down and listen to what companies that do that, they have that expertise. I mean, it's in their best interest to make sure that facility is making money. So I think, to Kevin's point, that is I think a key formula, along with the planning and the design and the construction side of it and site selection, making sure you've got the right people that are going to manage it. I think it's well worth the conversation and the investment to do that.
Agreed. And two things that Kevin mentioned that kind of popped in my head and I made a note of was, when we're talking about doing, research, and not only like who should operate it, where should we put it at, but also like what fits your community. A lot of times you have it where the mayor wants to build a basketball facility, but it doesn't make sense for the community need and use. It's just he's a basketball fan, right? So it's getting the information, doing the research, putting in the legwork internally as well as with outside operators and researchers to figure out what fits your community, where is it location, where it makes sense, right? And a lot of times, you're seeing that develop more. People are starting to do that, and it's really important because you need to learn what your community is needing and what fits and what makes sense, so that you're not creating something that is never going to be successful in any capacity. And then I go back to what Kevin talked about, what is being successful, right? I know a good friend of mine, John Schmieder, he owned Huddle Up Group. He always mentions whenever he does presentations about when he used to speak to, he would speak to him in the number of potholes that were fixed by the sales tax revenue that was generated. And so I always keep that in mind when you think about the group that you're talking to and that you're trying to show the impact, where it might be, you might be subsidizing the convention center, $200,000, but it made, $5 million in extra, impact or indirect impact to the community. I think that's so important why we, Dallas keep adding space to the convention center because of what they can do for volleyball and what it does for cheerleading and things like that. And then when we entered in the Triple P with FC Dallas to operate MoneyGram Park, looking at the people that have the experience, locations, what the community needed was so important. And that is not done without research and getting out the appropriate message.
Venues don't come cheap. you've all mentioned public-private partnerships. Can you talk a little bit more about why you use those, why they're so effective for these kinds of projects, Kevin?
It is a different format than your old Parks and Rec used to be from years back, right? I mean, we look at these facilities now as, again, sports tourism, but some of the components that we're seeing in them now are just evolving and really getting interesting and fun. We're seeing more and more involvement from the medical community now, which is wonderful. Different sports physicians that would do rehab or a host of different things would be located at a facility like this. So you had different partners coming in, making it more and more of a hub for your city. But in regards to your local community, your private-public partnership, there are lots of ways. We all have different mechanisms within our city, whether it's tours, 4A, 4B corp money that is set aside. The old procurement process of, a city wanting to move forward and kind of doing their old standard procurement process is something that takes forever and a day to get accomplished. You don't always involve your best qualified people. And so if you look at the time that it takes to go through all that process versus a private public partnership, how that debt is structured, how it is worked, we're seeing more and more hotel partners coming into these type transactions now than ever before. And so to bring all of those together, it takes someone from the private-public partnership to facilitate that and to finance it in a host of ways that are out there.
What we're seeing on the construction side is really exciting. We're starting to see, and in certain states that, statutes are different, for procurement and how P3 can be used, and it varies from state to state, obviously. And even now, public safety facilities, fire stations and police stations, city halls are utilizing the advantages of P3 delivery. From our standpoint as a construction firm and working, in those different types of procurements, to Kevin's point, this P3 method really sort of expedites that procurement process. It also can get you really experts that are extremely qualified as a team, whether it be design, engineering, and construction and so forth. But you also have some, the financing advantages. We're seeing even in states like Indiana, for example, who have gotten very, very good, I think, at municipal P3 delivery, for example, for public safety. And you're seeing finance that some of the rates that they can get are extremely competitive right now. And again, it sort of expedites the process for just getting things moving on the project. There's nothing more frustrating when a municipality has a great idea, they're on board with it, and then that procurement process takes forever. And then at the end of it, sometimes you don't even get the qualified firms that you want to have work on your project because of the procurement law if you deliver it in a certain way. So P3 allows you to go through, legal procurement process that expedites it. And from our standpoint, it's you're seeing a lot of advantages, especially right now when you're seeing the cost of materials and the cost of things like furniture and fixtures, different types of equipment, the lead times from last year, from a COVID year. We're trying to explain to our owners and clients that, expediting the process is a good thing right now, especially if you have something that's been planned, it's ready. That P3 delivery just kind of helps move things along.
I think from a destination, city perspective, it's how do we achieve the goals that our citizens desire via vote and that our tourism visitors want with the least amount of dollars and risk associated with us as a destination and city. So I think that's where a lot of the time the triple Ps come into, either in maybe not necessarily always in funding and procurement in that manner, but maybe operations. That's what we could look at outside organizations. But a lot of times when it comes into having that mixed use development, that triple P relationship of the builder and the operator of the whole area, it makes sense because you're mitigating your risk from the city perspective on the dollars that you're investing, and it allows to create partnerships that in turn will generate more sales tax revenue, hotel tax revenue, and it makes sense when you're comparing the two scenarios where you're taking all the risk. And there's very rarely where city run facilities and it's just city everything that you're not subsidizing in some manner. So having that triple P relationship kind of starts moving in the direction of alleviating those issues.
Some of the mistakes or some of the pitfalls that that you've seen in developments, whether they're local serving recreation type facilities or sports tourism projects, what have you seen that kind of makes you scratch your head?
Well, I mentioned some of the examples earlier, but the lack of planning, and that is one of the biggest things. And it could be something as simple where, the facility is playing in the right area to improve growth in that area, but then the support and the surrounding community, the research wasn't done. They build restaurants and they build everything that's going to come in, and then the venue ends up being more local recreational based. So then the restaurants don't make it. So then when you start bringing in tourism, then it's not a success. They're like, well, what is there to do? Well, there's restaurants, but half of them are closed. So it really takes a holistic effort from the surrounding area of the facility and the community to kind of make sure that we're planning it out appropriately. I will tell you one of the biggest things though is people being set in their thought process of what is needed without doing their homework. Because I've seen people, hey, well, I want 14 basketball, 14 basketball courts to play on, but their community can only support 6. So even with amazing leadership that is outside of the community, like if they hire a third party to help operate things, it's going to be hard for them to be successful because it's not appropriately sized and focused for the community that it's in. So I'm always a big proponent of more research. And again, I don't want to keep being repetitive, but always admit, if you don't know, just say you don't know. That's the biggest thing. There's other people that are experts for us to partner together on, be collaborative and work together to make sure everyone's successful.
Aside from the planning not being done properly, that you've seen that has made you wonder why that decision was made?
That it's that they do the research. That I really find it almost mind-blowing, the amount of millions of dollars investment that's going into some of these developments. And nothing against some of the local firms and experts in some of these areas. They can be a great asset to really knowing some things about the development of the project. But some of the folks that you can talk to that are extremely specialized in doing only these types of facilities and only these types of the market research that they do on these, this is all they do. And to bring in somebody that says, yeah, we did a park and rec facility once, it blows me away that this is supposed to be a revenue generating development, not just on the sports facility, but all the surrounding hotels and restaurants. So even from an equipment standpoint of what goes in the facility, I'm surprised and blown away that there's not sometimes the importance or the thought put into how that's all planned out. Because again, depending on the use of your facility, you can build the most beautiful sports facility, and have all the, like JD said, have all these developers come in just waiting and ready for the revenue to start generating, and you've got a facility that's poorly planned, equipment that either doesn't fit or allow the use of the facility and the sports and the programming that's coming through there to operate efficiently with the most playtime that it can do, as well as maybe not the most high, the highest quality, so it's not going to last. So you have, anytime you've got suspended ceiling backstops and stuff that aren't operating, you got a court that's down. Well, that's money. I mean, that's money. That's money that's lost. So that's just a small little thing. Again, I guess more from the overall construction of things. We see things go into materials that, again, I think it has to be looked at as a whole on what's going to really drive the facility and get people back there to play. And that's the whole reason that's what's right. The whole development is based around that play. So yeah, if any advice I would give to some municipalities, it's, make sure you don't, it's all about making sure you have a budget. I get all that, but make sure you really talk to the experts who can give you advice on how the equipment should work, how the courts or the fields should be laid out, and just let those experts, guide you.
I can't stress it enough, and that is your operator. I mean, it's pointless to invest in these facilities, hope that you'll increase demand, and all of a sudden your operator doesn't do a good job, doesn't market from the marketing side of it to bring these groups. There is a expertise associated with that, I can assure you. So if you're not going to bring those groups in, you're not going to build that demand. That's going to trickle down into your users, and it goes from there. But just that feel that you get, you want every patron to leave there saying, this was such a great feeling coming here, ease of access, great facilities. We definitely want to sign up for this next year. That's what's important.
Any final thoughts that anybody has as we wrap up this morning?
The only thing I could add to this would be, I think this is an industry that is just now starting. I don't think it's peaked yet. I think it's going to continue. It's going to go kind of internationally. I think we've learned a lot in the last 5 to 7 years, and it's really exciting when this has taken place. Doesn't matter the size of your facility. You're not too big or too small to be able to host sports tourism. It's great for the community, great for the youth, a great way to showcase your city and your area. So I think you're going to see more and more of these down the road, and it's going to be exciting to see where it all ends up.
Be flexible. Plan on being flexible, because I just, on the facility side, sizes of fields change, specific needs change, every new event changes, and then on the development around it, if there's able to make it where you have extra meeting space, extra space available, that then you can partner with the outdoor venue as an example, like they'll need meeting room spaces, those things. And so think about the holistic approach, that when they step on that campus of the mixed use in the facility, that we don't want them to leave. So try to think through and plan out all of the needs. What do you look for when you go and participate with your kids, or participate yourself on an adult travel ball and things like that? Just be flexible and think through any scenario that you can.
And don't be afraid, I'm putting my construction, pitch on here. Don't be afraid to allow the construction partner of the entire team come in extremely early with some of the other advisors. That I get so many times where, I think because of, P3, they don't quite understand the delivery yet. They're so used to that design, bid, build kind of mentality, where it's like, well, we're talking to the architect right now. As soon as it's designed, we'll give you a call and we'll, you can bid on it. Well, that's not adding any value to the project whatsoever. So I guess my advice would be, allow, the construction partner, that expert, especially in these types of facilities, that they should be there right in the beginning of the discussion. And so that we've found that the most successful projects that allow for CORE to do our pre-construction services up front, working with the owner, working with the developer, working with the architect team, working with the other advisors that are involved in these types of developments. We can give insight on things that are coming in terms of cost projections, in terms of schedules, in terms of lead times for materials that nobody else on the team. And so, it's always frustrating for us, because we kind of get pushed as just the builder, and which we do build, but we also advise and consult up front too with professional services. So I guess that would be my closing advice: is don't, listen to all those partners that are experts. I think, going back to our point earlier, is that this is what a lot of us do.
That's going to conclude this roundtable. Thanks for joining us. And if we can ever be of assistance, you can visit us online at sportadvisory.com. We'd love to talk to you about what you're thinking about. Thanks a bunch.